No. Just me.
What do you want from me?
I don't know, Jesse. You think you could turn back time? Answer me!
No.
Do you think you can bring the dead back to life?
No. No!
No! I didn't fucking think so.
No! No! No!
Why are you screaming? I haven't even cut you yet.
Brian Kendall wanted to get his family out of the city. He wanted a safer, quieter, calmer place for his kids to grow up. He and his wife Belinda found a perfect house in Slainsville, West Virginia. The place was surrounded by trees as far as the eye could see, and the little town was just what they wanted. They packed up the kids and their dog Coco, and they moved in. One day, Belinda's brother and sister-in-law came to visit, bringing their daughter Jordan. They threw Jordan an impromptu birthday party. Jordan was on the floor playing when one of the balloons began acting odd. The string pulled straight and it floated in midair as though someone were holding the string. Belinda and Barbara looked at each other, mystified. As they were standing in the kitchen looking into the living room, they watched Jordan as she just watched this balloon float over the living room. Jordan did not touch the balloon, but it made its way towards her and stopped. Jordan looked at the balloon, and the adults could have sworn the little girl was looking at another child. When she reached for the balloon, it just floated up to the ceiling. One day, Brian took Blair, his daughter, out into the backyard to go hunting. They found a squirrel, but Blair had to chase it to the back to the right side of the tree. As she tried, she spotted something in the distance. It was a dark, burnt-out van. What Blair found really, wrong was that there was a mattress in the back. Brian was troubled by it and got Blair out of there as quickly as he could. Brian's job took him away from the house during the week. Leaving Belinda and the kids alone, Blair wanted to go camping one evening, and Belinda made sure she was set up in the yard with Coco. She tucked Blair in, and Blair was perfectly content. That night, Belinda's son, the usually ready to go bed, he just refused to go to bed. Belinda tucked him back in, checked on Blair, who was outside with her lantern on. In the middle of the night, Coco woke up Blair. The dog was being uneasy. Focused on something outside. Still unable to sleep, Sean looked out his bedroom window and saw something lurking outside the house. Belinda's son went to his mom and telling her that there was a monster outside his window. Thinking he was just seeing a deer or some other animal, Belinda checked and found nothing outside the window, sure enough. And so just to settle her son's fears, she gave him a quote-for-quote magic spray bottle that he could use to ward off whatever made him afraid. It was a simple spray bottle for her hair, but if it settled Sean's nerves, it was the world. Suddenly, Blair heard something. Thinking her mom had come to check on her, she looked around, but saw nothing. On another quiet evening, Blair was playing in her room when suddenly a little girl was sitting in front of her. Blair didn't feel threatened, but the child wouldn't play with her, so she tried to ignore her presence. The little girl appeared at about the same time every evening, and Belinda dismissed it as Blair having an imaginary friend. But Blair knew it wasn't real. Was real. On Monday night, when Belinda was exhausted, she had a very strange dream. In the middle of this dream, something pinched her toe. There was a boy standing at the foot of her bed, pinching her toe with a clothespin. She began to follow the boy, who said his name was Andrew. He was just letting Belinda know he was there, and so when Belinda woke up the next morning, she noticed a clothespin on the floor at the end of their bed. They had a dryer in the house, so all their clothespins were still packed. Had it really all been a dream? While Belinda's sister was watching the kids, Belinda took a stroll through the woods. It looked like a miniature graveyard. She began to wonder if the other kids, quote for quote, her children were seeing, weren't imaginary after all. That evening, Belinda was unable to shake the feeling of being watched. Coco slept on her bed, giving her some comfort. Blair was awakened by something and discovered that her bedroom curtains were opened. Confused, she went to close them. As she did, a ghastly face appeared on the other side of the window. Blair darted back to bed, pulling the covers over her head. Coco began barking, waking up Belinda. Blair felt the covers move and move and move, braced herself for the owner of that face to be in her room. She was relieved to see the little girl appear, warning Blair to stay away from the bad man. When the little girl disappeared, Blair went back to sleep in her own room. Belinda felt something touch her, but nothing was there. Borrowing her mother's car, Belinda took the kids into town to run some errands. While there, she heard a story that helped explain things. That graveyard was connected to her house after all. There had been a fire in that house that stood on the land about 100 years before, and the whole family had died. When they got home, Coco was gone. They checked the fence, calling into the woods. There'd been no way for her to get out of her enclosure, so Coco was just nowhere to be found. Believed to basically have been taken, Belinda searched the property, but didn't find her. It was a calm Sunday evening. Everyone was tucked away asleep. Belinda began to dream about the little boy, but this time the boy was trying to tell her something. She followed him through the dream but couldn't get the information. Belinda was awakened by Sean's blood-curdling scream. She ran to the child and found him in the middle of the floor with his arm broken and twisted. She called for Brian. They all piled into the car to get to the emergency room. Blair said to Sean that the bad men had done it, and she immediately decided that because the little girl was protecting her, that the bad men had moved on to her brother. After 3 days in the hospital and also a little investigation by social services, Sean was released. Belinda hated the idea of taking him back to that house, but borrowed her mother's car and did it anyway. Had of all the times Sean feared going to bed been red flags she rationalized away, they had to get out of the house. Out of nowhere, Belinda's mother's car just shut off. They were on the side of a road in the middle of the winter trying to fix it, but with no results. They decided to walk home. A car approached from behind. A kind local woman offered to give him a ride. When Belinda told the kind woman where they lived, the owner of this vehicle, or this kind lady, basically said, "Hey, do you know what happened on that property?" And their conversation finally gave Belinda the info on what happened there. It wasn't the fire. There was a fire, but it wasn't just that. The rumors were that there was a man that lived on their property accused of being a child molester. He had gone missing in the woods before Belinda's house had even been built. He had been lured into the woods on the pretext of a hunting trip, when a group of local men took justice in their own hands and shot him to death, and the burnt out van had been the man's final known location. The body has never been found. It was like if it was a a real life Freddy Kreuger. Belinda knew it wasn't the old man who was haunting their house. It had hurt Sean. Later that evening, Belinda heard scratching when they went in the house as they arrived home. It was as something was trying to get in. Maybe it was the bad man trying to finish the job. She and the kids packed up and moved out. Belinda never even flinched the idea of going back.